Well, hello there, and welcome to a tutorial on timers using Programmable Rednet Controllers. Try saying that quickly. This is simply a tutorial on how to use this thing. This is the Programmable Rednet Controller from Minefactory Reloaded to make timers of various sorts. Basic timers, long-term timers, so timers which are lasting over several minutes or even several hours if you need something which is timing that long. And also how to get this thing to synchronize multiple different outputs. So for example, you might be using some other mods to create a mob trap, something like that, and you have multiple different machines which need switching on in various orders, but staying synchronized. It can all be done with doing this. What I'll not be going into is how to actually make these or any other parts of the Rednet controller other than the pages which are useful for making various sorts of timers. So let's get started. I'll just quickly point out that I'm using the Rednet cable from Minefactory Reloaded. If you don't know this, it is just a cable which transmits a redstone signal. It transmits it without losing power over distance, and it also comes in different colours as shown by this band, so you can select different colours and transmit different signals on the same bit of wire. I'm going to set these through to white. You have the full 16 colours. I'm also using this. This is a glowstone illuminator from thermal expansion. I'm just using this to show when a redstone signal is being outputted in the place of some machine. Okay, so if you open up this thing, you get this page. In the centre are all the different sorts of things you can put on each page. You get 6 pages of things you can do. For creating timers, the only important one really is at the bottom. It is this, the square wave timer. Now on all these pages you have 2 different sides. You have inputs which come on the left and outputs which go on the right. For the square timer you only have one. It is the period, PD. We can set this to a time that we want this thing to work on. If I just set this up to 10 and on the right hand side set the output to an output on the back, which is where my lamp is, you can see the lamp is now switching on and off. The period is measured in ticks. A Minecraft second is 20 ticks. So if I'm setting this with a period of 10 ticks, what this is doing is switching on for 10 ticks and off for 10 ticks. So we've got something which is switching on for half a second and off for half a second. Nice and simple. You can set this up and down to any sort of length. If I switch it up to 20, which is 1 second, it will be on for 1 second and it will be off for 1 second. Now the only problem with just doing this might be all you need. There is a limit to how far it can go because the highest this thing can count is 255. That's what, 25 seconds. So that's the maximum you could use this for. But it does work for those sorts of lengths, and of course it has the on-off equal lengths. It is on as long as it is off. So what happens if you want something which is working a little bit longer? Well, you'll need to pass this into a new page. So let's click on the next page and take a look at this. This is the counter. This does exactly what you think it will do. It counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. There are 4 options on the left: Inc, Dec, Pre and R. The important ones you need to know really are this. This is increase. That will make it count up. That would make it count down if you needed to do that. And pre is the limit that it will count to. So what we are going to do is go back to the previous page. Instead of outputting to the back, I'm going to make this output into a variable. So there is now a variable called variable 1, which is holding whether this thing is switched on or off. If what I now do is set this, the increase, to work when variable 1 switches on, What it will do is every time that variable 1 switches on, goes from off to on, this will send a signal to this counter and make it count up by 1. Since this is working on a period of 1 second, it's switching on and off every half a second, so it only switches on every second. This is going to count up once per second. If I make this, the pre, count up to, say, 10, this machine will count up from 1 to 10, technically from 0 to 9, but don't worry about that. It will count up from 1 to 10 and then reset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. The entire thing will take 10 seconds because each count will happen on 1 second. So what are the outputs? You have two outputs. They are Q and V. Q first. Q will fire whenever this thing resets. So if I set this to output whenever this resets, it is going to fire once every 10 seconds. If we wait for a few seconds, we should see that happening. It will fire now, and you can see it is firing really quickly because it goes in a one-tick fire, like a button press. 10 seconds later, it will fire again. You can therefore set this to any number, again up to 255, and it will count up that number of seconds. If you wanted to, you could also make this output go into another variable, variable 2, set this whole thing up again on variable 2, and you'll be counting up in larger amounts. If you set this to 60, then on the next page you can count up in minutes and have it fire every 5 or 6 minutes. Now what happens if you want something which lasts longer than this one-tick button press? Well, let's output this to variable 2 and go on to the next page. The first thing that you could find useful is the pulse lengthener. This is nice and simple. It has an input, which will be the variable 2, because that is what we are trying to lengthen. L is the length, so I will set this up to, say, 20 ticks, which will be 1 second. So now whenever it receives a pulse, it will lengthen it and hold it for 1 second. Now just set the output on the back, as it was before, and now whenever it fires, which it should do within 10 seconds, it will hold on for an entire second. So you can set this to lengthen the pulse again up to about 20 seconds. The final thing is, how do you synchronize multiple machines? Let's imagine that you've built some very clever machine which is going to need multiple outputs to happen at varying times. So I'm just going to set one up with, say, 3 machines. These are all switching on because they are white. So let's quickly turn one onto orange and one onto purple. Okay, let's get rid of this page and go back to the previous page, the counter. The other output on the counter is V. V is the value. That will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as this thing is counting up. So let us turn this output to null and set this one to be variable 2. So now variable 2 will hold a number. If we go on to the next page and get rid of this pulse lengthener, there are a few other useful things. Let's look at this one, equals. This means that if two values are equal, then it will do an output. It has set to what the pulse lengthener was set to. But let's say that we want variable 2 to fire whenever the counter is on second 3 for the sake of argument, and output to the back on white. So now it will output whenever the counter reaches value 3, and it will default hold for the entire second because value 3 will be on for 1 entire second. This counter is counting up in seconds. We could then go on to a next page and add another equals and ask when variable 2, perhaps this time, equals 5. Output on the back to the orange machine. Now if you wait through the 10 seconds, we will see that this one will come on at second 3, and then this one will come on at second 5. So you can synchronize multiple machines. Obviously you can pass either of these into a pulse lengthener if you're doing something like, I don't know, operating a piston for so long to move water about, whatever you like. There are two other useful ones which may be handy. There are your less than or equal to's, and greater than or equal to's. Obviously we are on 10 seconds. I'm actually going to go backwards to the counter and make it count over 15 seconds just to give me a bit more room. So what you could say is that greater than, whenever variable 2, which is our counter, is greater than, let's say, 9. This is how long we want the purple colour on the back to operate for. So now this one will hold on from 9 up to the 15th second, this one goes on at 3, this one goes on at 5. So using these in various combinations, you could make something which is timing over any sort of length. Just one final note, back here on the counter I mentioned very quickly that counters won't count in this case from 1 to 15, it will actually count from 0 to 14 because that is how computers count. The only way that might catch you out is if you ever try to set this equals thing to a value of 15, it will never fire because this one will never actually count the 15th. It will count to 14 and then count 0. So never set it to the highest number on your counter and you will be fine. And that will be it for this tutorial. I do hope that that was useful. Thank you very much for watching. Do like and subscribe if you enjoyed because that helps no end. And I very much hope to see you again next time. Thank you and goodbye.